Outlaw Law is brought to you by Whitaker and Hamer, attorneys and counselors at law. Your law firm for life.
Welcome back into the Outlaw Lawyers. Josh Whitaker and Joe Hamer, Whitaker and Hamer Law Firm. They're your hosts. The power behind the program is the firm. And remember, Josh and Joe are managing partners of that firm, and they're practicing attorneys here in North Carolina. They have offices in Raleigh, Garner, Clayton, Goldsboro, Fuquay, Varina, and Gastonia. And if you've got a legal situation you're facing and you've got questions, I've got a phone number for you, 800-659-1186. That's 800-659-1186. And just leave your contact information, briefly what the call's about, and an attorney with Whitaker and Hamer will be in touch. Also, you can email your questions to the program, questions@theoutlawlawyer.com. All right, gentlemen, we're off the heavy and we're into the show. I know you guys want to start off with some sports. I know the Hurricanes they're in it, but the Rangers are back in it.
Yeah, that game last night was rough. Joe, did you see that game?
I saw part of that game, and I had my two boys both had baseball games, so I was at the baseball field. Got there at like 5:30. Had a second game that went to like 4 sets of extra innings. We left at like 10:30. It was a barn burner of a little league playoff game. But so I was keeping up with it on my phone, and I'm kind of glad that I didn't get to watch it very closely, because I think as a Canes fan I would have been incredibly frustrated by the way that game went.
So let me ask you this, Joe. So in a little league baseball situation, what inning do they cut off beer sales?
Yeah, so they inning 0, but if you come prepared with your Yeti cup, no, it was I tell you, last night, I know we got a lot of little league baseball fans on the show, but high stakes, man, high drama for a little league baseball game. I've never my kids are just getting into the age where they keep score. You have several years of your life, of your kids' lives rather, where there's just no one really cares. They don't keep score. You're just out there to have fun. And so, you get to Little League and that kind of goes away. Everyone cares. And, man, as a person who's competitive and has that competitive fire in me, it's so much more entertaining to watch than just a game. Kids need to have fun. It's not that serious, et cetera, et cetera. But it's a lot more fun when there are some stakes to it. And there were some stakes to it. I'm happy to report my kids' team pulled out the victory in the I think it was like the 4th set of extra innings. And it was a good time, man. It's a real good time.
Little chest thumping going on the program. I like it.
Yeah,
Joe,
it was cooler than the Canes game, at least.
Yeah, Joe, what age group is that?
That is, I'm going to say my kid's 9. I think it's like 9 to 11. I think that's roughly what it is.
Yeah, my boys came up through baseball, but in the end, basketball and football won out. They kept getting they got to that age where you get beaned all the time, where kids are just learning to pitch, and they didn't make it through it, man. They didn't persevere.
Yeah, my own kid gets beat. I think he like his first like 6 at bats he got hit with the ball, and so yeah, that is a factor. That's a factor you have to consider, and those games can be slow, man. Like you said, the kids are just learning, but beats the heck out of T-ball, Joshua. I'll tell you that much right now.
No, that Hurricanes game, we were at the house and we turned it on, and it wasn't going real well, and then we ended up moving over to Holy Moly. I'm a big Holy Moly fan, and so that came on at 8. So I didn't even. It's the first playoff game I don't think I've watched to been there, or if I was at home watched it to completion. So, but yeah, definitely didn't go good, and I didn't see what happened at the end. I saw some penalties handed out there at the.
Heard a lot of
end,
fights.
so
hopefully there were several fights at the end.
But so they'll be moving back again. We're in the studio on Wednesday, so they'll have a game. I guess Thursday they'll be back for you. Will have gone better. They always play good at home, though. They find it at home.
Yeah,
very different team on the road.
I was going to say they've played extremely well at home, undefeated to this point, and they can't win a game on the road. And so the fisticuffs and the rough stuff at the end of that Rangers contest is a message that the Canes are saying they're not going away. And it's the same thing for the Rangers. They're saying, well, we're coming to your house now. So by the time this program airs on Saturday, they will be building up for a game in New York, because certainly they'll play the game on Thursday here in Raleigh, and then they'll head up to the Rangers Madison Square Garden for a Saturday contest. And depending on how it goes this week, I mean, to me, the Canes are on the ropes, guys. I mean, they need to figure out a way to win on the road. They do have home ice, so if they keep holding that, they'll win this series. But man, you know who's waiting? Whoever gets out of this series gets Tampa.
Yeah, and Tampa looks scary good.
Well, hopefully they'll make it there. The Rangers are tough, and if you've been watching these ESPN games, you know the ESPN guys, they love the Rangers. They want the New York team to win. It's so maybe we can upset the Rangers and get to the finals.
Well, I think it's interesting, and this will be the last thing I comment on, but the Hartford Whalers, before they came down to be the Carolina Hurricanes, that was the home team for ESPN. And so when they left, a lot of people at ESPN at that time not happy about it. And I remember 2000, 2001, when they made that cup run, ended up losing to Detroit, and ESPN came down to cover it. They were pretty, they weren't happy about it. They were very much talking about the Hurricane Whale, the Carolina Whale. They kept doing that. Franchise was upset about it. The league had to step in and talk to ESPN about it. And then 06, 07, they make the run and win it. And boy, I tell you, it was like pulling teeth for some of the ESPNers to talk positively about the Hurricanes, because they're the former Whale. And so
that seems like it's lingering too, man.
I mean, how long have we been here?
There's remnants of that, in the commentary, and you always, I think we as fans, we're always guilty of assuming like commentary is biased against your team, but I think so. There's some lingering. I don't know if that's ESPN based, or if it's the folks calling the game for ESPN have like Ranger. I don't know what it is exactly, but I don't really like it, man.
Well, teams move, and we all need to move on from that. And let's hope that the Hurricanes can right the ship, or have righted the ship on Thursday, and they're headed into a Saturday matchup where they can close out the Rangers. We'll have to wait and see.
Well, guys, I had originally planned to talk about or spend some time discussing. I try to read a lot of different, especially for the show. I try to read a lot of different news outlets. I read more traditional newspapers, even if I don't have the newspaper in my hand. That's the things I gravitate towards. But I was reading an opinion piece, an editorial out of Missouri. I don't know how I found it or got to it, but it had some interesting. It had some interesting pieces in there, but basically the editorial, the opinion they put out there is, what if it was in light of the abortion leak? I think that's what kind of drove the writer, the author, to this conclusion. But it could just as easily have a gun rights overtones, and they do talk about gun rights in here. But it was like, what if the states, what if the citizens just stop listening to the federal government? And so they laid out a couple of things. Like, one, many states are legalizing marijuana. The feds haven't decriminalized it, right? It's still a federal criminal charge, certain possession. And the states where they've legalized marijuana sales, that's a whole industry, right? It's sprung up all over the place. And I don't know. Did you ever read, Joe? I've read a couple of it lately. But, when Colorado and some of the first states that legalized not even medicinal marijuana, just, marijuana sales to the general public, these marijuana retailers, right, they couldn't use banks, right? Banks were afraid to do business with them since it was, federal profits from a legal activity, at least in the eyes of the federal government. And so I think a lot of these folks had like warehouses full of cash with private security and things like that. But definitely that's one example where states have just said, we don't care what the federal government says in our borders. This will be legal, and we're not enforcing it. And the feds have allowed that, right? The feds don't really enforce this, but yet the law hasn't changed. And we're kind of gotten used to it. When that first happened, that was kind of a novel situation. I don't know if you remember that. I don't know how old you were when that happened.
Josh, I'm not a young child boy to this day. I do remember. I do remember that, and you mentioned folks dealing in marijuana, even folks. Even more recently, some of the folks that are dealing in CBD and hemp and things like that have faced some of the same issues where there's just some kind of uncertainty there. And like you said, by and large, the federal government not enforcing a lot of those prohibitions, but there's still an inherent at any point they could, and like you said, I know folks who are kind of in industry that were just like you said, they didn't want to use banks. They couldn't use traditional methods of payment just because they were worried about some kind of seizure of those assets, of the money they were making. And I think it was a real problem for folks, and I think to a lesser degree may still be somewhat of a problem for folks. But it's an interesting thing to think about. What if you just have states that basically just say, screw this, I'm not gonna, we don't care anymore. How does that play out?
All right, Morgan. What I know we're again coming up against the break. I want to continue this discussion when we get back, because it goes into a couple of other things, and it's kind of relating to some of the bigger news stories of the day. So we'll keep going here after the break.
All right, the Outlaw Lawyers, Josh Whitaker and Joe Hamer, Whitaker and Hamer Law Firms, where you can find them. They're the managing partners there and practicing attorneys here in North Carolina. Offices in Raleigh, Garner, Clayton, Goldsboro, Fuquay, Varina, and Gastonia. If you've got a legal situation and you've got questions, I've got a phone number for you, 800-659-1186. That's 800-659-1186. Just leave your contact information, briefly what that call is about, and an attorney with Whitaker and Hamer will be in touch. You can also email your questions to the program, questions@theoutlawlawyer.com, and we'll answer those on a future program. And check out the website, theoutlawlawyer.com. We're back right after this.